plead guilty, Your Honor.
To all 4 charges?
Yes, sir.
Becky Hill, the clerk of court in Alex Murdaugh's double murder trial, is in court admitting to crimes that she committed stemming from the high-profile trial. Hill's own words coming back to bite her in a big, big way.
Did you ever allow anyone from the press to view these sealed exhibits?
No, ma'am.
I go through all of it. I'm Angenette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. Have you ever wondered how we are able to share so many clips from breaking news cases as they're unfolding? Well, here's a little secret. Opus Clip is an all-in-one AI editor that makes it a breeze to cut, create, and upload videos across any platform. Through AI, Opus Clip generates B-roll, it reframes footage, and it even cleans up audio. Just visit opus.pro/crimefix, sign up, and upload. In minutes, you'll have perfectly edited clips ready to go. For TikTok, Shorts, or Reels, it's a one-stop shop. Having Opus Clip means our producers can post viral updates instantly. This is the most powerful tool for sharing ideas and editing like a pro. So go to opus.pro/crimefix to create your videos today. Alex Murdaugh was on trial for the murders of his wife Maggie and son Paul. The small town of Walterboro, South Carolina, was thrust into the national spotlight. This was South Carolina's trial of the century, and the county's clerk of court, Becky Hill, was the toast of the town. I know because I saw it. I was there. You had to schmooze her a little bit for good seats in the courtroom, stuff like that. She even had a front row reserved for her special guests, and you were not allowed to sit there if you were not one of them. Becky was friendly and she was helpful, but all of this attention may have gone to her head, and it led to her fall from grace. Following the trial, Hill wrote a book with a co-author named Neil Gordon, but the book was pulled after it was revealed that Hill took a BBC reporter's work and passed it off as her own. That's plagiarism, and it's a big no-no. An investigation into Hill started after Murdaugh's trial, when rumors started to swirl that Hill may have used federal funds for bonuses. Now, there's that old saying that where there's smoke, there's fire, and there was a lot of smoke. The rumors were enough to spark ethics complaints and later a criminal investigation. And here's another one that got Hill in big trouble. She was taking members of the media to a back room after hours and allowing them to view sealed exhibits. At a January 2024 hearing, former Chief Justice of the South Carolina Supreme Court, Jean Toll, asked Becky Hill about that.
Did you ever allow anyone from the press to view these sealed exhibits?
No, ma'am.
Did you allow Netflix to ever examine the exhibits for trial?
No, ma'am.
Well, guess what? Investigators with SLED said that was a big fat lie. Justice Toll actually pressed Becky Hill about the sealed exhibits at that hearing.
How did you handle exhibits? Because you did have the press have great access to the exhibits, and you say several times in your book that you had to stay after to be sure that you interacted with the press about these exhibits. That's true, is it not?
That is true. We had Mr. J. Bender, and then we had the pool photographers and someone from maybe the state, I believe, or the Posting Courier, along with the court reporters, someone from court administration, and then someone from the clerk's office every night that would go over the exhibits to make sure everything was correct and within our domain.
Were any press people ever allowed to view the exhibits, even the sealed exhibits that you had on file?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
What was the methodology for allowing them to examine the exhibits? How did you handle that?
I wasn't there a whole lot when we did this every night, but it's my understanding that the people that were involved with the exhibits, and especially the court reporters, and there was a certain time frame that they were allowed to take their pictures, and everything was all of the pictures were looked at by the court reporters that were there, and the lady from court administration, along with someone from my office and Mr. J. Bender, to make sure that everything was done correctly.
What I'm asking is how you handled having them, the press, view these exhibits.
If I remember correctly, the press, we had certain designated photographers and then someone, I think, from the state of or the Post and Courier, and they were responsible for putting it out on a stream for the rest of the media to
And
access.
would they do that by photographing the exhibits as they were in your possession after court was over that day?
That is correct.
All right. And how did you handle the sealed exhibits in terms of their availability when these press people are there photographing exhibits?
They stayed sealed.
And so you think that you're aware of the fact that some of these on-the-scene photographs of the two decedents found their way into the public press. You're aware of that, are you not?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Now, at the same hearing, Alex Murdaugh's defense attorney, Dick Harpootlian, pulled out an email showing that Becky Hill indeed had handed over sealed exhibits to a documentary film crew.
But what it is an email from Rebecca Hill to Miho Takachuchi, something. Miho, first name, the Buford McDowell body cam should not have gone to you. Please get rid of it. Do not use it. The Judge Newman, specifically ordered that body cam not be used if it got out. Apparently, it's still on the videos we were saved. I appreciate your attention. What about what about the other body cam video we could see on many news documentaries? Can you provide it? It seems the camera was on the other police personnel. I mean, here she's having emails between this Japanese production company about body cams telling them to get rid of it. I think that's important, and I can have a copy of this printed out for you when we can get it to a printer for the record.
That hearing was in January 2024, as I mentioned, and it would take more than a year for charges to be filed. But this past May, Becky Hill was charged with felonies of perjury and misconduct in public office. A warrant stated, in Richland County, South Carolina, on or about January 29, 2024, Mary Rebecca Hill, being the elected clerk of court of Colleton County, did willfully and unlawfully give false, misleading, or incomplete testimony while under oath in a court of record. During the hearing, former Clerk Hill did willfully and unlawfully give false and misleading testimony when Chief Justice Jean Toll asked former Clerk Hill, "Did you allow anyone from the press to view sealed exhibits?" And Hill responded, "No, ma'am." This statement was inconsistent with the events of February 28, 2023, when former Clerk Hill did release or make available sealed evidence photographs to a third party or parties. Hill also faced 3 misconduct in office charges, one involving an allegation that she failed to protect the sealed exhibits, and another about her book. The warrant stated, on or about June 7th, 2023, Mary Rebecca Hill did promote a book in which she was an author behind the doors of justice, the Murdaugh murders, while using her public office to promote the aforesaid book on social media, such act being for her own financial gain and in violation of her duties, in violation of the laws of the state of South Carolina. Hill is also accused of using federal funds meant to support child support enforcement to give herself a bonus. The warrant states, on or about September 1st, 2021 through March 5th, 2024, Mary Rebecca Hill, being the elected clerk of court of Colleton County, Hill requested and then received $9,880.10 in financial bonuses for herself that were paid from the Title IV-D incentive funds. Such funds were obtained by Hill and utilized for her own financial gain. Furthermore, on or about March 5th, 2024, Hill received a financial gift and/or/bonus in the amount of $2,000 paid by a check from the Colleton County Clerk of Court's office funds and utilized for her own financial gain in violation of her duties. Becky Hill repaid that nearly $12,000 in funds by personal check today. Still hanging over all of this is the allegation by Alex Murdaugh's attorneys and a couple of jurors that she made comments to try to sway them to find Murdaugh guilty, possibly to sell more copies of her book.
Well, in your book, you suggest that the guilty verdict was what you wanted, and you were fearful that that a guilty verdict would not be rendered. You say that a lot about your feeling about wanting a guilty verdict, do you not?
I do agree that that is said in the book, and part of that is because I think it was a guilty verdict.
Well, this is that you were describing a time way before the verdict was rendered, when you wrote about those things in the book. Isn't that correct?
It is, yes.
And you even have something where you said your eyes met with jurors and others at Moselle, and y'all have an understanding, unspoken, that he was guilty. You said that in the book, did you not?
Now Hill has pleaded guilty to 2 counts of misconduct in public office, 1 count of obstruction of justice, and 1 count of perjury. She received suspended sentences, so she will not serve any jail time. Here's part of the hearing from Fitz News.
I want to say that I am truly sorry, and I do take full responsibility for my actions. And I know that I have let down this court, my community, and the people that put their trust in me. There is no excuse for my mistakes. I am ashamed of them, and I will carry that shame with me for the rest of my life. I have already begun the hard work of rebuilding the relationships that I damaged by accepting responsibility, by seeking forgiveness from those that I love, and by repaying any improper bonus I received. I am committed to making amends, to being honest, and to living in a way that reflect the values that I failed to uphold. Your Honor, I respectfully ask for the opportunity to continue supporting my family and to work every day to rebuild the trust that I have broken.
Solicitor Rick Hubbard had this to say about allegations of jury tampering.
As Your Honor knows, if I were to prosecute this case, all 3 of these jurors would be my key witnesses. And the inconsistencies would be insurmountable if I proceeded forward. In addition, what SLED did is they interviewed the remaining 11 jurors. None of them corroborate these 3 jurors. One juror out of that whole bunch said something about, Ms. Hill said something about the defendant's demeanor, but in his statement to SLED, he said, I didn't know what she was talking about. My vote was my vote. It was based on the evidence. So there was nothing to really go on with that juror. Otherwise, all of them denied everything that was said in the back room by Ms. Hill. Many of them said she was very professional when she was back there, and she only talked about the things that the judge had sent her back there to talk about. So they
had Mr. Hubbard's team uncovered any sort of jury tampering, there would be a much different sentence here today. There's probably nothing more sacred in our system than the jury, and I have known Mr. Hubbard since his hair was dark and I had some hair. So if his team, and I know both the lawyers on his team, and if they tell me at least they couldn't prove it, then that's enough for me.
Okay, so to discuss all of this, I want to bring in Jen Wood. She's a researcher at Fitz News. Fitz News has everything covered down there in South Carolina. You should check out their website. Jen, I don't know about you, but Miss Becky, she's a nice lady. We all dealt with her down at the trial, but she was a public official, an elected official. They are accountable to the public. And wow, she got off pretty easy here, I think. She no jail time, suspended sentences, paid back the money she took. She took money that was public money for a bonus for herself. So yikes. What's your feeling about this?
It's a really odd feeling to have, because I'm not overly surprised, but I'm very disappointed. I just kind of felt like it was just, let's get this done before the holidays and move on.
It feels like faux accountability. Usually they make an example out of a public official for doing something like abusing their office. And the judge was like, she got caught up in the hoopla of this big trial and people were making money. And, I know you didn't make a lot of money. Well, how do you know that, Judge? Like, first of all, but come on, like, you're basically saying, like, oh, you got swept up in all of this. Like, no, like, maybe she did and maybe she didn't. Like,
And I thought it was interesting as he was going into the sentencing portion, how he said, if they had proven there was jury tampering, that this would have gone a lot differently.
right.
And, I was thinking, but haven't they? Haven't they proven that?
I mean, we have at least one juror who said she felt pressured.
Right.
And so it's going to be up to the South Carolina Supreme Court when oral arguments happen
Right.
in Alex Murdaugh's appeal in February to determine which standard should be used,
Right.
Remmer or Green.
Right.
So
And I think that's going to be a big deal.
it is going to be a big deal. The thing that bothers me about what that judge said, Jen, is the fact that the stealing of the bonus money, the child support enforcement money, started like it didn't have anything to do with the trial. So let's not act like this had anything to do with that.
Exactly. And that was completely separate from that. And I think it shows just how widespread the problem was there.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me too because Alan Wilson, he brought in Rick Hubbard as kind of a special prosecutor. There was not a total separation here because he still had one of his attorneys with the AG's office, assisting with this, advising, like appellate counsel or what have you. And it just seems like to me, like, they proved the perjury. I mean, that must have really ticked them off. Okay, she lied. They had her
Right.
dead to rights on the perjury, that she lied about showing members of the press the sealed exhibits. We knew during the trial that was going on. I heard about that back then, that she was taking people back there after hours and letting them take a peek at stuff and showing them stuff. I mean, we knew that was going on back then. It was really weird. I've never heard of a clerk doing that. But that must have really ticked them off because, or maybe it was Justice Toll who's like, you saw it, right? Maybe there's like behind the scenes, like talk or chit chat. She lied to the world and me right in front of everybody. So maybe that's why they were so interested in that and going back and looking at the, metadata and things of that nature. So they were really upset about that. And it seems like they were more upset about that than her stealing the money and using, her office to promote her plagiarized book.
Right. They called I think they called Rick Hubbard's role in this a limited designation, which I thought was really interesting, in noting that the Attorney General would maintain control of the investigation. I think the whole thing is just bizarre. And I think it goes to just how bizarre the Murdaugh case is at this point. We are going into oral arguments in February in front of the South Carolina Supreme Court. And is this going to play into it? I mean, will this come up during those oral arguments? I'm really curious.
I want to know how deeply allegations of potential jury rigging and jury tampering were investigated, because there was talk that Miss Becky's phone kind of disappeared or was erased or factory reset. There was all this chat about that, all this chatter about that. Also, she was friends with the forewoman, and she was seen walking around Moselle with the forewoman during the jury view. Did they ever go to the forewoman and say, hey, did they sit down with this forewoman and say, okay, just level with us. You're not going to be in trouble. What did you guys talk about? Can we see your cell phone? Did that ever happen?
Right. The extent of the investigation, we don't know anything because there haven't been any charges filed. There hasn't been any information released. So we don't, in terms of the jury tampering, we don't really know what happened.
What we do know happened was that Miss Becky was going to the egg lady and talking to her when she shouldn't have been.
Exactly.
So we know that happened. We know Judge Newman, we know for a fact that he was not happy about that. So she was kind of sticking her nose where she shouldn't have been, and that's a little bit of smoke, if you don't ask me.
It's a lot of smoke, and we still don't know where that Facebook post that ultimately got the a juror removed from the jury, where that originated, because it was said it was from her ex-husband, but yet in reality it had nothing to do with him.
I think there's another certainty in this case, Jen, and there's a certainty in this case, and that is that the AG's office does not want to retry this case.
No.
They do not want to retry the murder case for Maggie and Paul's murders. And, nobody wants to probably retry a case once you've won. Nobody wants to do that. But do you have any inkling about why there's just such great resistance? Because I can't imagine after that hearing that we sat through in January of 2024 that there weren't things that they heard in that hearing that didn't give them pause.
The only thing I can think of is there are a lot of, the Attorney General right now is running for governor. And this is the case. This is one of the biggest cases of his career. There's a lot of careers that have been based on this trial and this conviction. So having to do it again, I don't think it would be a very good look.
It would be a terrible look.
Yeah.
But as I've said many times, everybody deserves a fair trial. And they may very well, let's say Alex Murdaugh gets a new trial. You could retry this case with a totally new jury and still get the same result.
And likely would. We sat through the first trial. We saw all of the evidence, but he is, just like everybody, entitled to a fair trial. And in my opinion, he did not receive that the first time around. There's no possible way to look at what happened and think that he did. And he pled guilty to all those financial charges. He isn't going anywhere anytime soon. He's in prison for decades.
He is in prison for decades, both on the federal level and the state level. There's this whole kind of, it's very messy.
Right.
It's very involved. But he does deserve a fair trial. And it's like, if Alex Murdaugh, a member of one of the most prominent families in South Carolina can't get a fair trial, then who can?
Right. It is one of the most widely watched criminal trials in history. And with all of the public scrutiny on it and, the notoriety of it, if we can't do it right the first time, it is sad. It's a sad state.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens in February, because I think we'll be able to get a good feeling based on the questions from the Supreme Court justices, which way they're leaning. They very well may look at this and say, you know what, I just don't see it. I don't see that there was jury tampering. They may say that. So he may not get a new trial. I think it's just a wait and see, like anything else.
It is. And, even after that, if they were to, affirm his conviction, we could still very much look at it being overturned at the federal level. And I do think the chances are a little better at the Fourth Circuit.
That's what some lawyers have told me, that they believe that, say he didn't get a new trial at the state level, that the federal level is where a new trial would likely be granted.
Yeah,
again, it's a
very
big wait
clearly
and see.
set the standard at the federal level as Remmer in the Fourth Circuit.
Yep. Jen Wood, thank you so much. Always good talking with you.
Thank you.
Alex Murdaugh's lawyer, Dick Harpootlian, released the following statement. The guilty plea is not surprising. More importantly, the agency expected to impartially investigate these charges has a vested interest in avoiding any outcome that would question the verdict of the initial Alex Murdaugh murder trial. If Becky admittedly perjured herself in the jury tampering hearing held by Judge Toll, what else could she have lied about? And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.